Welcome to this explainer. Okay, so today we're doing something really cool. We are taking a futuristic, almost microscopic journey into the actual biological hardware that drives our everyday behaviors. We're going to literally look under the hood of human psychology to see exactly how our biology makes us who we are.
But first, you know that moment when you drop your cell phone and somehow, like a total ninja, your hand just shoots out and catches it before you even fully realize what happened. It's a split-second reaction that feels almost like magic. Well, it's not. To understand this everyday behavior, and honestly so many others, we have to zoom way in on the body's hidden information highway.
Here is our roadmap for the explainer today. We'll start with the neural information highway, check out the old brain's survival wiring, and map out the cerebral cortex. Then, we'll navigate the nervous system, look at the endocrine chemical network, and wrap things up with modern brain study methods. Let's get into it.
Part 1. The Neural Information Highway, the body's wiring.
Get this, you have over 100 billion neurons in your nervous system. That's a massive network. Take a look at those branching, tree-like fibers on the left. Those are the dendrites. They essentially act as receivers, picking up messages from other cells and sending them straight to the cell body, or the soma. Then you've got this long transmission cable called the axon. The axon passes those messages away from the cell body and out toward other neurons, muscles, or glands. And notice those little segmented pill-like structures wrapping around the axon? That is the myelin sheath. It acts just like the rubber insulation on an electrical wire. It dramatically speeds up your neural impulses so they don't short out along the way.
So how does a message actually travel down that cable? Well, it operates on a four-step electrochemical process. At first, the axon is just sitting at a resting potential, meaning it has a negative charge on the inside. But when it receives a strong enough signal from those dendrites that crosses a specific threshold, boom, the gates open up. Positive sodium ions rush in, giving us step 3, the action potential. This is a super fast electrical signal zipping right down the axon. And the really crucial point here is that this is an all or nothing deal. The neuron either fires completely or it doesn't fire at all. There's no halfway. Finally, it hits a refractory period, which is just a brief reset time where it literally can't fire again until it pumps those ions back out and gets back to its resting negative charge.
Now, once that electrical signal reaches the very end of the axon, down at the terminal buttons, it has to somehow cross a tiny, microscopic physical space called the synaptic gap. The electrical zap triggers the release of chemical messengers, which we call neurotransmitters. You can see these glowing chemicals crossing the space and binding to receptor sites on the receiving neuron's dendrites. And this works exactly like a lock and key. A neurotransmitter is only going to bind if it perfectly fits that specific receptor. Depending on what neurotransmitter it is, it'll either excite the next neuron, pushing it closer to firing, or inhibit it, basically telling it to just stay quiet.
Moving right along to Section 2, the old brain's survival wiring, our survival hardware. Check out these two foundational structures. On the left, you've got the brainstem. This is the absolute oldest and innermost region. It's effectively an extension of your spinal cord. It handles the most basic involuntary functions of life. We're talking about things you never ever consciously think about, like breathing, your heart rate, and simple motor responses. Now look at the right side. That's the limbic system, wrapping right around the brainstem. This area is the boss of our basic emotions and memory. It's got the amygdala, which is super tightly linked to emotional responses and fear, the hippocampus, which is absolutely crucial for storing your explicit memories, and the hypothalamus, which regulates basic drives like hunger, thirst, and body temperature. Together, this old brain is quite literally the hardware wired for your basic survival.
All right, Part 3, the cerebral cortex and plasticity. Okay, so this is the cerebral cortex. It's that massive, wrinkled, highly folded outer layer that you probably picture whenever anyone says the word brain. It contains over 20 billion neurons and an absolutely mind-blowing 300 trillion synaptic connections, all of which are supported by billions of glial cells that protect and nourish the neurons. Basically, this is the central processing unit for our complex thoughts, our advanced memories, and all our high-level social interactions.
Let's play tour guide for a second and quickly navigate the 4 distinct lobes of this cortex. Right behind your forehead is the frontal lobe, which handles thinking, planning, memory, and judgment. Think of it as your executive control center. Moving back, we have the parietal lobe, which processes bodily sensations and touch. Then, at the very back of the skull is the occipital lobe, and that is solely dedicated to processing visual information from your eyes. Finally, sitting pretty much right between your ears is the temporal lobe, handling your hearing and language processing.
But here is the really wild part. This immense structure, it is not static. This brings us to a super important phenomenon called neuroplasticity. The brain has this truly remarkable capacity to reorganize, rewire, and even repair itself in response to new experiences or damage. Your neural information highway is not rigidly locked in place. It is constantly laying down new digital pathways and rerouting connections as you learn a new skill, form a new memory, or try to bounce back from an injury. It's constantly updating.
Section 4. Navigating the nervous system.
Your nervous system basically has two main functional divisions. First is the central nervous system, or CNS, which is made up of just your brain and your spinal cord. This is the absolute command center. It interprets all the incoming sensory info and issues directives. But to actually get that information, it has to rely on the peripheral nervous system, or PNS. The PNS is the front line. It's this massive, sprawling network of nerves linking your central command center out to your sensory receptors, your muscles, and your glands. Remember that ninja cell phone catch we talked about earlier? Or maybe accidentally touching a hot stove? This diagram explains that magic. Usually, sensory information has to go all the way up to the brain to be processed. But for sudden, urgent actions, special interneurons inside your spinal cord can trigger a lightning-fast motor response, a reflex, before your brain even fully registers what's happening. Your hand jerks away from the flame or darts out to catch the phone, literally, before you have the time to consciously think about it. It's an amazing built-in biological shortcut just for your protection.
Now, zooming in on that peripheral system, there's an automatic component running our internal organs, and it's divided into two totally opposing forces. The sympathetic nervous system acts kind of like the accelerator pedal on a car. It arouses the body, gets your heart pumping, dilates your pupils, and prepares you for action or stress. It's that classic fight-or-flight response. Conversely, the parasympathetic nervous system is the brake pedal. It calms the body down, slows your heart rate, and diverts all that energy back into digestion and recovery. These two systems are in this constant push and pull, working together to maintain homeostasis, which is just a fancy way of saying a perfect natural biological balance in your body.
Okay, part 5. The endocrine chemical network. Chemical communication.
So, the endocrine system works right alongside the nervous system, but instead of those rapid electrical spikes, it uses glands to secrete chemicals called hormones directly into your bloodstream. These hormones take their time, traveling throughout the entire body to regulate our emotions, our physical growth, reproduction, and our overall metabolism.
Let's highlight the heavy hitters driving this chemical network. Up near the center of the brain is the pituitary gland, the master gland. It controls physical growth and essentially commands all the other glands in the body. Down a bit in the midsection, you'll find the adrenal glands. These are super important because they link directly back to that sympathetic nervous system we just talked about. During a threat, they pump out epinephrine, which you probably know as adrenaline, giving you a massive surge of energy to respond. Then we've got the pancreas, regulating our blood sugar levels, and the testes or ovaries, which secrete sex hormones like testosterone and estrogen, heavily influencing our social and sexual behavior.
And finally, Section 6, Modern Brain Study Methods.
Historically, scientists basically had to rely on studying cadavers or observing patients with specific brain lesions, meaning localized brain damage, to figure out what part of the brain did what, based on whatever function the patient had lost. It was slow work. But today, we have incredible neuroimaging techniques. We use EEGs to measure the electrical activity right on the surface of the brain. We use fMRI to track blood flow and actually see, in real time, which parts of the brain are lighting up while a person is thinking, feeling, or acting. We even use TMS, transcranial magnetic stimulation, to temporarily deactivate specific brain areas without any surgery, just to see what happens. These modern tools are exactly what allow us to build the intricate biological maps we've been exploring today.
Which brings us to a pretty massive, kind of mind-bending question to end on. If absolutely every thought you have, every memory you store, every single emotion you feel, and every sudden reflex you make is fundamentally driven by this complex web of trillions of electrical impulses and chemical hormones interacting, who is really in the driver's seat? Is it your conscious mind, or is it your biology? I really hope this explainer sparked your curiosity to learn more about the incredible, complex hardware that makes you, you. Keep learning, keep exploring, and we'll catch you next time.